What is up, everybody? Doomwake here. Welcome back to another modern video on the channel. As always, before we continue, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Let me know in the comments section below what you thought of the video. I have been working a lot over the past couple of days, weeks, on this Reanimator shell, if I could talk today, that abuses Persist, Archon of Cruelty, and ways to put Archon of Cruelty in the graveyard. And we started with an Asmo package with Urza Saga, Underworld Cookbook. We then swapped to Orzhov, which was black-white with Grief and Ephemerate. We have something very similar to that Orzhov deck that I played. However, we're splashing for a double red card. What could possibly go wrong? This is a deck list that I've played on my stream a couple of times. I played it on Saturday, and then I played it a little bit last night as well. I think I played 3 leagues with this Mardu version on stream, and I think I'm a combined 14-1. I have 2 5-0s. I guess one of the 5-0s was off stream, but 9-1 on stream with this deck list with Seasoned Pyromancer. The other list that I had I'll show you the other list real quick just so you can get an idea of what are the differences and where I'm changing my cards around. This is the other list that I played. Today we're going to be doing this one with Grief, Ephemerate, Seasoned Pyromancer. And I have just been a really big fan of the Reanimator strategy, just trying to persist back in Archon of Cruelty. It just seems like every time I put this card into play, the game ends on the spot. So the card's very powerful, and it's very hard to beat it, especially on turn 2 or turn 3. You know, there's some slower lines where you Burial Rights it, and, you know, it's turn 4, turn 5, and maybe they can remove it and not be too far behind. But when you put this thing into play on turn 2 or turn 3, it feels like it's lights out against a lot of stuff. So I've been very, very happy with this Reanimator deck. Also, the really nice thing that I noticed about like playing the Grief Ephemerate stuff is if you go turn 2 Unmarked Grave, turn 3 Persist with a white mana up, and you get to Ephemerate your Archon when they go to kill it, they're done. That's it. We'll move on to the next game. So, been a big, big fan of this deck list. Now, I will say, full disclosure, the mana in this deck is not the best, and I'm still working on that. But this is kind of the happiest that I've been with so far. So you have Blackcleave Cliffs, Bloodstained Mire, just a bunch of fetch lands. The mana is still a work in progress, but I think I'm like relatively happy-ish with where it's at right now. But we are just kind of like a black-white deck splashing Pyromancer at the end of the day. But anyways, just to go over the deck, Persist, Unmarked Grave, search your library for a thing, non-legendary card put in your graveyard, and then you can Persist back the Archon. That's the combo. Priest of Felrights, another way to reanimate the Archon. Seasoned Pyromancer, the reason that I'm so high on Seasoned Pyromancer is it feels like the card just does everything. It's pressure when you aren't doing the Reanimator stuff. It's 3 mana for 4 power some of the time. When you're Hellbent, it's card advantage because it's just straight up draw 2 cards. You can discard Fatties to put it into your graveyard. You can discard Burial Rights. You can discard Priest of Felrights to get that back. It's just an amazing card. You can discard additional copies of Pyromancer and then activate the Pyromancer a couple turns down the road. It just, it's good when you're flooding out. It's just always just a sick card. So I've been really, really happy with Seasoned Pyromancer in this deck. Again, Ephemerate Grief, along with 2 copies of Malakir Rebirth to go with the Ephemerate Grief stuff. I'm not a huge fan of Rebirth. The really nice thing about it is it's a way to slot more lands into the deck, but you can actually get away with playing 20 lands because we kind of have 22, even though they're ETB tap lands. So it's a way for you to skimp on lands a little bit and also get enough more black cards in the deck for Grief, and just, a way to make sure you hit your land drops but don't get flooded too often. One Sarah's Emissary, again, we're sporting that to go along with our Unmarked Grave, because there are some decks that still can't beat this game 1. And then we have 1 copy of Grave Titan. I'm not in love with the Grave Titan. I've had Terrasodon in the main deck before. I think there was another list that had, I think it's mostly just been Terrasodon or just only 5 fatties. The nice thing about Grave Titan is it creates 3 bodies. So if you have to get into a tight spot where you have a reanimation spell, expect your opponent to have a removal spell, and don't have like an Ephemerator way to blink it, there are spots where you might get Grave Titan, like against Control, if you expect them to have, a Path to Exile or something. It might be in your best interest to get Grave Titan because the 2/2s can, pretty easily clock them quickly. So there are situations where you want the Grave Titan, but, that is one of the cards that I'm looking out for in terms of what I might want to cut from the main deck. The one on Burial Rights is part of your tutor package, And then everything else, just, you know, Thoughtseize to protect your combo. Also, Thoughtseize, turn 1 discard enabler. You can go turn 1 Thoughtseize yourself, turn 2 persist your fatty. So that is the main deck. Sideboard, we're loading up on Prismatic Endings because against the Lurrus Dragon's Rage Channeler decks, I don't like the discard spell, so in those matchups I like cutting the discard spells, bringing in more removal, and some stickier threats like Kaya. Lingering Souls for the control matchup, along with Ox of Agonis. The really sick thing about Ox is you can unmarked Grave for it, so it's a card that you don't have to put a ton of copies of in your deck, but you do have access to a bunch of them because of unmarked Grave, and if your opponent doesn't have the heavy graveyard hate like Rest in Peace, Ox can be really hard for them to beat sometimes. Terastodon for your Tron matchup, because I found that the Tron matchup is very difficult without it, but when you have access to it and you can put this into play on turn 3, it's usually lights out against Tron. 2 Kayas to go along with the Prismatic Endings, because Kaya, just a really, really good card. Being able to downtick on Construct tokens, Ragavan, DRC, Underworld Cookbook, if people are still doing that, Death Shadow. There's just a number of things like, you know, Colossus Hammer, that kind of stuff. Just Kaya is just awesome right now, and it provides you an additional win condition while also gaining you a little bit of life, and it's pretty cheap. You know, a 3-mana Planeswalker is nice. Nahiri, I've been very impressed with, because even though we don't have an Emrakul to go along with it, you know, just being able to, again, discard fatties, so it's really nice in your primary game plan. It removes problematic permanents like Rest in Peace, that kind of stuff. And the -8 will usually win the game on the spot, because when you get an Archon and it comes into play and gains haste, that's 12 damage on the spot. You get 3 from the ETB trigger, 3 from the attack trigger, and 6 from the Archon. So that's 12 damage. I mean, that's likely good enough to kill them most of the time. We have a Void Winnower for your Cascade matchup, because it stops them from casting Crashing Footfalls or Living End, and also stops them from casting Petty Theft, which is usually their main out to stuff like this. So Void Winnower, I think, is very, very good against the Cascade decks. And then 2 copies of Rip Apart. This might look like an odd one. I have never been the biggest fan of Rip Apart because it is a sorcery. However, the nice thing about it is it kills, obviously it kills Rest in Peace, Soul Guide Lantern, Nihil Spellbomb, that kind of stuff. But the reason I'm playing this over something like Wear Tear is because it also kills Dothy Voidwalker, and that Rakdos midrange deck has been very, very popular as of late, because the one that Spike's playing. So I've been happy with Rip Apart at being able to also kill Dothy Voidwalker, because that card is a problem. But anyways, that is the deck list. So I won't keep you guys waiting. Without further ado, let's get into some games. I'll see you back here in just a little bit for round number 1. Alrighty, YouTube, back here for round number 1. League with, I guess, Mardu, Reanimator stuff. Yeah, I'm in there. We got the Grief and we got the Ephemerate, so, I mean, you know, A plus B, right? See how it plays out. I think I'm going to pitch the Persist, or excuse me, pitch the Thoughtseize and keep the Persist. So that way, if Grief does somehow die, I can just persist it back and then have the other Ephemerate for it, so. They're not going to have much of a hand, so I'm going to keep it. Alright, so let's go Marsh Flats. Get Sacred Foundry for the purposes of Seasoned Pyromancer in case we draw that. Pitch the Thoughtseize. They're on 5 cards, so... Thought Scour, Abrupt Decay. Well, take the Thought Scour. And we'll Ephemerate, take the Decay. Now they have no cards left. Alright, your turn. So we got Grief versus 3 lands. I will cast the Ephemerate on the rebound just in case they drew a spell. You never know. Might as well. Alright, so let's do this. Cast the Ephemerate. I mean, I do give up 3 damage if they didn't draw a spell, but I think it's worth it. Okay, have them all lands. Drew a Grave Titan. Not exactly the best draw. Not exactly the best draw. All things considered. Alright, Misty Rainforest, go. What do we got? A Sacred Foundry. Okay, we're just chilling. I don't think I'm going to cast the Ephemerate in their draw step. Because if they did draw a removal spell, it's kind of bad for me. I could have cast it there. Well, they didn't have access to black mana, but I think I'm just going to wait till they eventually, like, they'll eventually draw a removal spell and try to go for it. Oh. Was not expecting that. Okay, well that makes not casting Ephemerate pretty bad. They played Snow-Covered Island, so we still know about the Delta. Alright, let's untap. Malakir Rebirth, huh? So now we're racing. They're 12. I'm going to Ephemerate now while they're tapped out, just to get the card out of their hand if they drew a spell. They drew a Fact or Fiction. I'm just debating if I want to play the Mire. I think I do. We might just get to hardcast Grave Titan territory. Because this thing is going to take 3 turns to kill us. Also, the nice thing about playing the black mana is if I draw a Thoughtseize, I can now Thoughtseize myself and also cast Persist. Alright, they drew a Tar Pit, still have Delta. So Thoughtseize or Unmarked Grave are both good draws. I'm not going to cast it now, we know their last card's Delta. Persist is not what we're looking for. So I guess they have a 2-turn clock. So we kind of need to find Unmarked Grave right now. 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess Bone Shards would be good too, because we can Bone Shards, discard Grave Titan, and then take 3. They're going to hold up Counterspell, which I guess makes sense because they just have lethal next turn anyways. Well, I didn't draw a spell anyways. Wow, I lost this game. I guess I messed up by not casting Ephemerate in their draw step. I thought I wanted to play around a removal spell, and I wasn't expecting a card like this, but... Choosing to cast Opt. Okay. Yeah, I definitely could have won this game if I had cast Ephemerate in their draw step, but... I was worried about maybe them having, like... I guess if they have Trophy, it's kind of whatever, right? Because I still get a land and I'm closer to Grave Titan even if they trophy me. I'm just going to scoop because I'm dead on board once they see my hand. And I don't want them, like... We didn't actually show them any graveyard stuff, so maybe they don't think that I'm a Reanimator deck. Okay, against control / midrange stuff, I like all of these cards, these 7. What don't I like against them? Not the biggest fan of Priest. Although maybe it's better against them because they're not playing white for Prismatic Ending. Usually I cut Priest against the white control decks because of Prismatic Ending. But it is probably a little bit better against them. I'm going to cut Bone Shards. I'm going to cut the Sarah's Emissary. The reason I like cutting Emissaries is because they usually have multiple different ways to answer this, like Assassin's Trophy, Planeswalkers, sometimes even Sorceries. Just not a big fan of it against them. The card I usually cut against them is, like, I usually trim on the Grief Ephemerate stuff. Just because they have, like, so much built-in card advantage with, like, Fact or Fiction and that kind of stuff that, you know, as you saw that game, we Grief Ephemerated them and they just, you know, drew... I guess they drew a Murktide Regent, but I'm going to try this. I think this looks good. Play first. Okay. Turn 2 Priest, turn 3 Unmarked Grave. Can't complain about that. I don't think my life total matters that much. I'm just going to play the Cliffs on 1. Okay. Let's see what they got. I'm sure they have a Thoughtseize. Inquisition of Kozilek. Tough hand to discard spell, because I have 2 Graves, so they can't really take that. I mean, I guess they just take my turn 2 play, and just maybe hope I don't draw lands, but... the game goes long, I'm just going to get the Priest back eventually, so... that's why Priest is so good against decks like this. Alright, let's Unmarked Grave for a Fatty. Archon, excuse me. I always say Fatty, but Archon. So that we have the Priest plus Archon line available to us if we get to turn 5, which we should. But if we get to turn 5 and have both of those available is what I should be saying. Alright, so now they're going to take Kaya? Maybe they don't care about Kaya. Maybe their plan is take Pyromancer and then have like a Soul Guide Lantern. That'd be a pretty good plan. Not sure which type of graveyard hate they have. Alright, they took Kaya, which means they probably don't have Lantern. How about a Persist? It's pretty good. Let's just cast that. Sure. I'm in for it. Okay, Doomwink wins. They're off it. Classic Thoughtseize bug. Alright, game 3 time. Let's go. Alright, game number 3. This hand is fine. We don't have a turn 2 play, but I can go Thoughtseize into Pyromancer. Nice thing is we have a Persist, so if we draw an Archon, we can discard it to the Pyromancer and then set up Persist on 4. I think I'm just going to get a basic. I can get another red source with this. I can't really think of a reason to take too much damage here. I think just this is fine. Fatal Push, Counterspell, Counterspell, Trophy. Okay, well, the Fatal Push is whatever. Trophy, I think I'm fine with that exchange most of the time. I'm just going to take a Counterspell. I know it's weird that that's the one card that they have 2 of, but I just don't really care that much about the other 2 cards. That I think I'd rather just take their Counterspell. I kind of want to draw a Unmarked Grave and force the Counterspell there. Maybe they don't counter it, though. Okay, that works too. So they played Delta, which is the card they drew, so we know their whole hand. Alright, I'll take Counterspell, and then I have to play the... It sucks that I have to play the Foundry here, because I need double red for the Pyromancer. That's the one downside of not fetching a Blood Crypt on turn 1, but I kind of want to discard this anyways. So the nice thing about Rebirth is like it's a land to discard to Pyromancer, but it's a land that gives you a 1/1 off of Pyromancer, so... We drew Unmarked Grave. So what if I go Pyromancer, discard Rebirth, land, and then hope to spike a land off of the Pyromancer plus my draw step? I think it's a better use of my mana. Like, I could cast Grave and play a tap land, but I think I like this better because it also puts pressure in play. And if they drew a counterspell, this might bait the counterspell out, which is pretty good. So Rebirth, land. Perfect. So they have Push, Trophy, Island. I mean, I know they're gonna get the trophy, the Archon, but I'm just gonna be up so many cards if they don't have a counterspell that I just don't really care about that. Alright, so they have Push, Trophy, 2 unknowns. Let's go to attacks, see what they do. I assume they're not gonna act, which they didn't. Let's go... I guess I should fetch first. Let's get a mountain. Or I don't have a mountain, plains. Plains is fine. Unmarked Grave. Let's get the Archon of Cruelty. And I would like to persist it. Which I assume is going to get countered, but I think that's fine. Sacking Waterlogged Grove. Well, that's a good sign. Drown in the Lock. Alright, so they still have Push, Trophy. Them having to sack a land there was pretty good for us. Because now we can just slam the other Pyromancer. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Let's see what they're going to do here. Are they going to push the Pyromancer? It seems like they are. Yeah. So they take 1, go to 13. We'll cast another Pyromancer, leave up white in case we draw Ephemerate. This might get countered. Did not get countered. Okay, Blackcleave Cliffs, your turn. And now, even if they Wrath us, we still have 2 Pyromancers in the graveyard. Also, drawing this is pretty sick. That's actually hilarious, because now we can just unearth the priest. That's awesome. And they can't even counter the unearth of priest. We know they have a trophy. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That is gas. All right, let's go to attacks first. Yeah, that's like there's some matchups where priest is just the nuts, and this is definitely one of those matchups. There's just not a lot of them because most of the control decks are playing with prismatic ending now. That this doesn't happen a lot. You know, most of the time against control you play your priest and it just gets prismatic endings, but against the control decks that don't have prismatic ending, it's kind of laughable. Alright, I don't think I have any basics left. Yeah, we only have 2 basics in our deck. Only have 2 basics. I can live with that, though. Okay, Doomwake wins the match. Yeah. Kind of a good showing of, like, you know, game 1, we just, our stuff didn't come together. I mean, it kind of did. Maybe I messed up game 1 but not casting the Ephemerate, but games 2 and 3, just when you get to board in that package of, like, you know, Nahiri plus Kaya plus more grindy elements, you can just transform your deck into, like, just a decent mid-range deck, because Pyromancer facilitates that game plan so well. So, 1-0, and I'll see you back in just a little bit for round number 2. Alrighty, YouTube, round number 2, Mardu Reanimator. Let me guess, Aluris. Shocker. So we have a turn 2 priest. Got a lot of uncastables, though. I'm going to mulligan this hand. As much as I don't like mulling against Luris. Okay, this hand's better. Put back the Bloodstained Mire, because Marsh Flats can get both basics. Let's see what type of Luris deck they're playing. They're all kind of the same, but, you know. I've played against a lot of Luris over the past couple of days. I gotta say, I'm kind of getting sick of it. I don't think I'm at the point where I think that they should ban Luris, but I'm getting close to that point. It's a lot, you know? And it's just, my biggest issue with Luris is it's just the repetition, you know? It's the same joke over and over again. Even though the Luris decks look different, they all play out almost the exact same way. The only exception, I think, is Hammer Time. But the rest of the mid-range Luris decks, the Jund Saga, Rakdos, Grixis, Mardu, they're all the same deck. Alright, they took Ephemerate. Let's get a Sacred Foundry. Okay. There's actually a D-Straw. Because now I can just go land, Pyromancer, discard Grave Titan, plus whatever I draw. Oh, never mind. Okay, it's horrible for me. That is not good. So I guess I have to Pyromancer, discard Persist, plus Rebirth, because I just can't discard the Grave Titan. If they draw a discard spell, I'm going to lose, but it is what it is. Alright, Persist, Rebirth. Drew the discard spells a little bit too late. Yeah, I'm just gonna... If they play a discard spell, I'm just gonna scoop. Well, I guess a Thoughtseize specifically. I can't beat my own Grave Titan. Roxa. Well, discard a Thoughtseize. I guess maybe... No, just, yeah, discard Thoughtseize. They're a little... Oh, no, because now they can Thoughtseize me. But if they Thoughtseize me, then they lose the Voidwalker, so that's actually fine. Yeah, what am I saying? Okay, well, they're not Thoughtseizing me, so that's good. Shinka. Unmarked Grave. Not the best. Oh, but now they can just... I don't know. No point in casting Grave when they have the Voidwalker in play. Yeah, this is just like... Turn 2, discard spell into Voidwalker is kind of rough for us. Especially game 1 where we don't have a ton of answers to it. Once it's in play, it's tough. But when we get to the sideboard, we get some prismatic endings. And I actually think I like this matchup post-board. Just, it's game 1, it's rough if they have turn 2 Voidwalker. Because you just don't really have any way to interact with that game 1. They're going to lure us. No, another Voidwalker. Okay. So I'm at 6. I'm also just dead on board. Alright, yeah, you win. Alright, game 2. So we're going to do the sideboard plan that I was talking about earlier, cutting discard spells, bringing in removal spells like Ending and Kaya. And I usually cut something for Rip Apart, because I think in terms of removal spells versus Voidwalker, Bone Shards is a lot worse than Rip Apart for a couple reasons. One, Rip Apart obviously has other text, like Rip Apart can kill Soul Guide or Spell Bomb or stuff like that. The other problem with Bone Shards discard Archon against Voidwalker is your Archon still gets exiled. So against Voidwalker, it's still not really a discard outlet, so it doesn't work out the way you want it to. So let's do this. Alright, we're back here for game number 2. Let's see. See what we got. Playing against Rakdos Lurrus. I mean, I'm just going to say Lurrus at this point, but the Rakdos moniker doesn't even matter. Saying is slow. We can go Grave for Archon, Grave for Rights, but we have no answer to Voidwalker. I think I'm going to mulligan this, even though I don't like mulling against Lurrus. Okay, this hand plays. I'm going to put back the Blood Crypt, I think. Just lead on Godless Shrine. I mean, this hand has Grave into Persist, but they likely have a discard spell. Okay, not on turn 1 at least. Ragavan. I mean, I'm probably just going to jam. Yeah, my hand doesn't really do anything else, so I gotta jam. Hope they don't have a discard spell. The nice thing is, even if they have a discard spell for Persist, we still have Kaya to kill the Ragavan. So let's say, worst case scenario, they just, like, attack and... I guess they could have double discard spell, because they get a treasure off the Ragavan. I mean, if their hand was Ragavan plus Channeler double discard spell, I guess I was never winning anyways, but... not much I can do about that. So they have to take Persist, which is nice. Maybe we'll just draw another Persist. Alright, take 2, 18... hit an Archon. Let's draw a Persist. Thoughtseize Bug. Come on, Thoughtseize Bug. Not a Thoughtseize Bug. Alright, well, I think I have to kill the Ragavan. Feels kind of bad, especially if they have an instant to turn on Delirium, because they get to kill the Kaya, but I can't let the Ragavan hit me. I guess any land would do it too, right? Sorcery, creature, artifact, land. Yeah, so land or instant would turn on Delirium. But I think that's better for me than them hitting me again with Ragavan, so... I think I have to do it that way. Could still also just draw Persist, you know. Draw Persist and then we're chilling. Alright, Kaya's dead. What is their follow-up? Okay, that I am A-okay with. That I am less okay with. So, we need to draw Pyromancer? Yeah, it's not a Pyromancer. Alright, you can go. You may go. It's the joke about Lurrus, you just never have a chance anyways. Yeah, I mean, I think our hand was fine. You know, we had turn 2 Unmarked Grave, turn 3 Persist and or Kaya, and they just had Ragavan into Channeler plus discard spell into Graveyard Hate. You know, their draw just matched up well against ours. Like I said, I don't think this is that bad of a matchup, but... problem with Lurrus is, like, they're so efficient and they're so consistent at just finding all of the cards they need because they have Channeler and redraws and all these cantrips and stuff, and they never run out of gas with Lurrus. It's too much. I think it's too much. Alright, we're going to go to the next match. Anyways, that was, you know, it is what it is. 1-1, I'll see you back here in just a little bit for round number 3. Alrighty, YouTube, round number 3. Thank God we're not playing against Lurrus. I've had enough of that. This hand's not good. One lander. Okay. I can work with this. It's unfortunate that we don't have a black card to go with this grief. Well, we do, but I don't wanna pitch Persist or Unmarked Grave. That's the idea. Let's go bottom Blood Crypt, fetch Sacred Foundry on turn 1. Because I wanted to grief to protect the Persist that I go for on turn 3. So maybe if we find a black card, we can do that. Maybe grief prior to Unmarked Grave. We'll see what happens. See what land they play, and there's a lot of things that'll influence our decision on whether or not we want to grief, if we even draw a black card. If I just draw a land for, say, I'm not going to pitch either of these. I'm just going to go for turn 3 Persist. Alright, basic island. Which means what we're likely going to do is just go... Yeah, we're just going to cast Unmarked Grave. I don't really plan on casting this grief anytime soon. Maybe if they have a second island and I draw a black card, I'll do it before I Persist to get around Counterspell. But definitely not going to cast it this turn. Yeah, I'm just going to cast Grave. Because I don't think they usually play 1-mana Counterspells. So we should be good to go to resolve this. And then next turn we can Grief before Persist when they leave up Counterspell mana. It's also a lot better if we draw an Ephemerate, because imagine that if we draw an Ephemerate, we just get to go Grief, pitch Grief, take your Counterspell, Ephemerate my Grief, make you answer that, even if you have a second Counterspell, and then slam the Persist on the Archon. So, Ephemerate is by far our best draw. I know it'd actually be insane. Thoughtseize is good too, but... Baral, that's not what I expected. Well, Persist pretty good against them. So let's actually go... fetch for... Well, actually, I don't need to fetch, because I can just leave up Godless Shrine. So let's just Persist the Archon first. I want to leave up Godless Shrine because that allows me to Rebirth, Thoughtseize, or Ephemerate. And I think I am going to Grief Rebirth this turn. So they sack Baral, discard a card, and then we can Grief Rebirth, take 2 more cards. But if I draw Ephemerate, I'd rather Ephemerate than Rebirth. That's why I'm not playing the flats first. Because I want to decide... I don't know if I want to get a Plains or a Swamp. Inquisition. Well, I think I'd rather Grief Rebirth. So let's get a basic Swamp. Let's go Grief, pitch... I'm just going to pitch the Grief. I could pitch the Inquisition, but I think pitching the Grief is better. Alright, so let's take a peek at their hand. We get to take 2 cards. I will take Serum Visions and Manamorphose, leave them with Baral, because Baral is just going to die next turn to the Archon trigger. So they got Baral and a bunch of lands. I think we can beat Baral on a bunch of lands. Especially because Baral is just going to die next turn. Well, they just won't play it, right? It seems pretty tough for them to win this game. Alright, there's the pathway. I guess if they chain, like, Manamorphose into Manamorphose into Manamorphose into Gifts. Anyways, that didn't happen. Alright, playing against Storm. I think I like the discard more than ending against Storm. Soul's definitely not... How good is Void Winnower? Void Winnower's gotta be good, right? Because their whole deck is evens. Rituals, Metamorphoses, Gifts Ungivens, Grape Shots. Most of their bounce spells are probably like Echoing Truth too. Winnower's gotta be insane. It's probably better than Grave Titan. Or maybe it's better than Emissary. So if I decide that I want these 5 and I have to decide between Grave Titan and Emissary, which one's better on average? Problem with Emissary is if you name Sorcery for Grape Shot, they can just storm through their whole deck and then find their bounce spell. So I think Grave Titan might actually be better because it kills quicker. So like if I turn to a Grave Titan, it just kills quicker than the Emissary. Do I want anything else? Kaya... They are kind of messing with their graveyard, so Kaya's not too bad. I kind of want to keep the rest of my deck intact, though. I'm just going to do that. Just some light sideboarding. Maybe I'm foolish for not bringing in Kaya, but this matchup seems like it should be pretty good, because we have a lot of discard, we have Grief Ephemerate, and then we also have just, like, the fast reanimation draws. This hand doesn't really have any of that stuff. It's really slow, doesn't have a reanimation spell. I'm going to ship it. Well, this hand has Thoughtseize You on turn 1, Unmarked Grave on turn 2, hopefully draw Persist. I think we can do better on 5? I don't know, this hand's close. I'm going to try it. I can see this hand being a mulligan, but I'm going to try it. We drew another Unmarked Grave, which is not the best draw. Just going to Thoughtseize them. It does set up for turn 4 Reanimate, because we can get the creature, and then we can get the Unburial Rites with the second one. Well, the good news is their hand is all mostly evens. So this Void Winnower might actually be good enough. I think I'm just going to try to take the Electromancer to slow them down. The only problem I have with taking Electromancer is it's the card they have the most copies of in their deck. They play, 7 or 8 copies of this between this and Baral. So there is some consideration to maybe taking Vision or maybe taking Echoing Truth, but... Alright, so let's get Sacred Foundry. Sacred Foundry, and then we'll Grave for, I guess, Winnower. I don't know if they can beat Winnower. Let's do it. Get ready for some can't even jokes in the comments. Got plenty of those in the stream. Although, I've yet to actually put this card into play. I've had it in my sideboard, mostly for the Cascade matchups, and I've yet to actually put the card into play. So, maybe, just maybe, we'll get to do that this match. Alright, Grave for Rights. I could, I guess, Grave for Priest, because it's uncounterable if they draw Remand. But... I think I like this better. Especially if their plan next turn is just the gifts. Like, if we cast Rights and they cast gifts, I could just... Like, I don't know that they have, 3 non-evens to get. Alright, that's a Baral. That could be bad for us. Could be bad. Alright, let's get a Blood Crypt. So they have Echoing Truth, Gifts, Metamorphose. I mean, yeah, they could have Remand. I don't think I'm supposed to play around it. Although it is pretty bad if they do have it. But I just... What am I supposed to do? Just do nothing? I think I have to go for it. Good chance they have Remand, but... I don't know what I'm supposed to do against that. I guess maybe wait until I find a discard spell, but waiting also gives them a bunch of time. Like, we're not that far away from dead when they have Gifts plus Metamorphose rolled up. We're actually pretty close to dead. Like, we're just a ritual away from probably just dying on the spot. Okay, that's good. So now they need to find an odd bounce spell. I mean, the only odds that they usually have are, like, Pieces of the Puzzle, Cantrips, Past in Flames. But I don't really know what else they would even have. Alright, it's an opt. Opponents can't cast spells with even mana values. I like how it says 0 is even. The reminder text. 0 is even. Kind of reminds me of like the food is green. Whenever you played Oko and you made a food and it's just like food is green. Like, thanks. They got a Mystical Dispute. Well, more cards they can't cast. So their hand right now is Truth, Gifts, Metamorphose, and these two. Plus 1 unknown card. Also, this is just a 2-turn clock. Okay, well that's pretty good too. I should have discarded the Archon, but... Because now they don't even have the Baral in play, and they can't cast more Barals. I definitely should have discarded the Archon. That was, I don't know what I was thinking there. I kind of just wasn't thinking, but... It might matter. if they have an odd bounce spell. What are the odd bounce spells? Like Void Snare, Chain of Vapor's not legal. Okay, well, they didn't have one. Cool. Opponent could not even take it, XD. But yeah, we finally got to get some use out of this Void Winnower. Even though I've had it in my sideboard for like, you know, a week straight, I've yet to bring it in. So that's kind of cool. 2-1. I'll see you back here in just a little bit for round number 4. All right, everybody. Round number 4. What we got? Playing against Donald Trump, huh? In the flesh. This hand is kind of awkward. We have Inquisition them. Not really anything to go with the Persist Rights. This Rebirth kind of just doing nothing. It's one of those hands that, like, if we draw an Unmarked Grave exactly this hand's good. Pyromancer is also a fine draw, because we can just get rid of this extra nonsense. I'm going to try it. I think this hand maybe could end up being a mulligan, but I want to try it. When I'm playing, like, sort of new decks like this, I tend to keep a wider range of hands to see how they play out. Okay, this hand's not the best against Tron. Okay. Well, we are probably dead. This matchup is rough game 1. I'm not even sure I want to show them that I'm a Reanimator deck. Like, realistically, how do I win this game? So I go Unmarked Grave. They just get to go Karn Liberated. Well, actually, maybe I can win this game. So Unmarked Grave for Archon. They Karn, maybe down tick on a land. I put the Archon into play, they sack the Karn. They play Ugin, but Ugin starts on 7 loyalty, so they can't kill the Archon. And the Archon kills the Ugin. Okay, maybe I actually can win this game. I mean, you never know. Maybe that's just copium, but I'm down to try it out. I'm giving up the equity of them knowing you're a Reanimator deck is somewhat appealing to, like, concede before you show them what you're doing. But I don't know. I mean, there is a way I can win this game. Okay, well, less likely now, but because now they just get Tormod's Crypt or something. Well, we didn't know they had that in their hand, so I could beat, like, if they only had these two, I could probably win, but now it's gonna be, yeah, okay, I'm off it. I think if I knew they had Karn the Great Creator in their hand, like if their hand was Great Creator plus Ugin instead of Liberated plus Ugin, I probably would have conceded that game, because once I cast the Unmarked Grave, they're just going to go get a Cage or a Crypt. But not knowing that they had the Great Creator in their hand, I think I still had outs that game. Alright, Terastodon coming in. Probably have to bring in Rip Apart too. I don't think I like Void Winnower because it doesn't stop Karn Liberated or Oblivion Stone. I mean, it stops Ugin, but Ugin's whatever. And it stops Karn. It does stop Karn the Great Creator, which is sometimes important, but most of the time Terastodon's going to be good enough. I actually don't like Emissary against them. I think I'd rather have the Archons. Well, maybe I can go down to a third Archon. Naming Planeswalker with Emissary is sometimes good. Yeah, I don't know. Most of the time I think I'd rather just have an Archon. And I think I'm going to cut Bone Shards. Okay. Let's cut Bone Shards. Game number 2. What do we got? We have no lands. Mulligan. Persist, Archon, Rebirth, lands. That's also not going to do it. Grief, black card, Ephemerate, 2 lands. Alright, we'll try it. I don't know if this hand's going to be good enough against Tron, but we'll try it. Especially a Tron opponent that gives 7. We'll see what they got. So we get to take essentially 3 of these cards. So let's take their Relic. Okay. So I could go Relic Karn Karn, or I could go Relic Scrying Whale. This is close. I think I might just leave them with Karn Karn. I think I'm going to go Relic Scrying Whale. So let's go Relic. I think I like this. Scrying, and then leave them with this. But this is probably when they just draw a map. Okay, they didn't draw a map. They did not draw a map. What did they draw? They drew a Yavimaya. Alright, well, still on the same plan. Just hope they don't draw a power plant. Or a map. Both of those would be pretty bad. Alright, this is when they just go power plant Karn and I instantly concede. Yavimaya. Okay. Get a red source in case we draw Pyromancer. What are we looking for? Not Marsh Flats. Your turn. No power plant, no power plant, no power plant. I mean, Karn also would not be great for us. They do have to uptick, though. Unless they just want to lose it. Okay. Let's get another red source, because why not? Okay. Drew a Pyromancer. That's not too bad. Let's go red, red, this. Leave up all three colors. Okay. Not the best. Not the best. Not exactly what we're looking for. Yeah, this matchup is kind of tough if you don't have a fast Terastodon. Okay, we're off it. All right, next game. Yeah, I don't know. I think that for the most part, I think this matchup is like close to being okay, but you have to Terastodon them. These games where you're just playing like the one-for-one fair game with Pyromancer and Greeth, you're not going to win those games. However, if you Terastodon them, you do win those games. Like they don't come back from a Terastodon ever. So you just have to mulligan very aggressively, and maybe I should have went to 4. But yeah, here we are, 2-2. See if we can claw back for the 3-2. I'll see you back here in just a little bit for round number 5. Alrighty, YouTube, round number 5. Where are we at? We got Godless Shrine Plains double Pyromancer, huh? Don't think I can keep that. Okay. Okay. This hand plays. This hand definitely plays. I guess I can put back the Blood Crypt. Yeah, because I can just go Cliffs into Mire, White Source, but I go Thoughtseize into Priest into Grave. This hand's got a pretty good curve. It's a little weak to Ragavan, but... Goblin Guide, okay. We can beat Goblin Guide, although Priest is not ideal in this matchup, because they usually have a plethora of answers for it. That was a good draw. Alright, Thoughtseize you. Wow, that's a tough hand to Thoughtseize. So we gotta do some math here. So we're going to Unmarked Grave on 2. So they're gonna get 2 more attacks before we can put the Archon into play. So if I take Eidolon, they go Guide Spear, 5 me. I'm gonna go to 16 off the Thoughtseize. So 16. Guide Spear, 5 me, I go to 11. I cast Grave, pass. They then, at the minimum, have Bump, put me to 8, and that's 6 damage, so I'm just literally dead to... I'm just dead to anything. Just any one... I guess it has to be a 1-mana spell or a land and a 2-mana spell. If I take Goblin Guide, then they just get to go Swift Spear, Bump. So that would be land, Swift Spear, Bump, 16, 13, 9, and then next turn it's 3 at a minimum. If I take Swift Spear, land, Guide Bump, that's 2, 4, 7, that puts me to 9. 9 with 4 as a minimum. I think it makes the most sense to take Goblin Guide. So I'm going to do that. I think that makes the most sense to me. think that saves. I think that preserves the most damage over the course of 2 turns. I kind of hope they play Eidolon this turn. I want them to play Eidolon so bad. I think that would be a lot better for me. Okay. They did not play the Eidolon. So 13 down to 9. Then we cast Grave. And then we're at 9 and they have 6. Or they have 3. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a close one. On the play, this game would not have been close, but unfortunately, we were on the draw this game. So, even if they have Stone Cold nothing, they put us to 6. Eidolon puts us to 4, because we have to cast the Persist. Go to 4, back up to 7. They sack probably Swift Spear. And we're at 7. Well, if they have any 1-mana spell, I lose, right? Because then I go to 2. Because they bolt me to 6, attack puts me to 2 to play Eidolon, then I can't cast Persist. So any 1-mana spell, I just lose. Okay, it's a good start for me. Okay, we can beat this. We can beat this. Maybe. So I got a 4, back up to 7. I assume they sacrificed the Goblin Guide. What was the last card in their hand? I'm going to guess it's like a Searing Blaze or a land. That would be my best guess. It was a Boros Charm, okay. That can get basic plains, so let's do that. Or basic swamp if I want to rebirth the Archon. I can't imagine a world where I cast Rebirth on Archon because that deals me 5 damage. Because the fetch puts me to 6, the Rebirth is lose 2 life, and I lose 2 off the Eidolon trigger. So I can't imagine a world where I cast Rebirth, but you never know. I wonder if casting the Boros Charm would have been better. That would have put me to 1, right? Yeah, maybe that's not better. Okay, they have 1 card. I'm just not going to crack any fetch lands. That was a good draw. Attack. Maybe they have Skullcrack. No, they don't have Skullcrack. Okay. That was a close one. It's definitely a close one. So we got Prismatic Ending over Thoughtseize against Burn for sure. And then I also usually like to do -2 Priest for 2 Rip Aparts. Priest is just so bad against them because they just have almost infinite ways to kill it. I think Kaya's too slow on the draw. Maybe on the play it's something I want access to, but I think on the draw I'm not a huge fan, so we'll just do this. Alright, game number 2 against Burn. What is best case scenario with this hand? They play a 1-drop. I Bone Shards, discard Ephemerate, whatever the worst card in my hand is. I mean, best case scenario, I draw Archon, Bone Shards, discard Archon, but this hand is just weird. I mean, it's got upside, though. It's only missing a Persist. I'm going to mulligan aggressively on the draw. Okay. So this hand's missing a discard outlet, like a Bone Shards, or a unmarked Grave. Alright, I mean, this hand looks bad, and it's not great, but I think this hand has some upside. I'm not in love with it, but I think it's okay. Lava Spike. That makes Bone Shards not a good draw. Alright, Marsh Flats go. Maybe they have an Eidolon? If they have an Eidolon, Bone Shards is now a very good draw. Alright, Bolt me, 14. I accept. Bump. Light up the stage. 2 cliffs. That's got to be a good sign for us. Let's get a Sacred Foundry. Yeah, let's get Sacred Foundry. Not an unmarked grave. Is there any world where I go draw, discard, or pass, draw, discard, turn after, persist? So 7 cards, they play land 3. Then 8 cards, discard Archon, turn after, persist. So they get 2 more draw steps, plus the 3 cards in hand. I think it's actually fine. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to pass. I think we might just barely have enough time because they don't have any creatures. I think maybe it's a different story if they hit a creature off of the light up the stage, but... Okay. That's actually not that bad for us. Yeah, I'm just going to pass. I mean, this is obviously terrible if they have a graveyard hate piece, but... That we can beat. That we can definitely beat. Okay, cool. So let's go. Marsh Flats, Basic Swamp. Cast Persist. See what they got. I don't think there's much of a reason to grief first, because they don't have white mana for Path to Exile. And I think I'd rather see what I draw than after, decide what I want to pitch to grief. I do kind of want to grief them, though, because of the Lurrus at the bare minimum. They might also just be off it now. They discarded Path. It's unfortunate they don't have white mana. I'll just take the Path. They have Lurrus bolts, whatever. I think that's fine. I mean, if they draw another bolt, sure. But I have a persist. So that's why I don't care about the bolt. The Path is more annoying because it gets exiled. But I assume this game is probably just over. Archon of Cruelty, very good card against burn. It's my expert analysis. Okay, I will attack. Maybe they drew a Skullcrack? But even if they drew Skullcrack, they don't have any outs, right? So they Skullcrack me, it's fine. They discard their Lurrus. But I'm at 5. So I don't think they have outs. I guess unless I take a damage, then maybe they have outs, but I'm not going to take a damage. Because I'm not going to... I mean, I guess they can't even cast Boros Charm. Yeah, they don't have white mana, so... Even if I was at 4, they probably don't have any outs, because they have no cards. Cool, 3 and 2, not too bad. Took a loss to Tron, and took a loss to Rakdos Lurrus. The Tron matchup, I think, is really all dependent on fast Terrastodons, and I don't know, I still think the Lurrus matchup is decent, but maybe I have to work on the sideboard plan a little bit for that matchup. But overall, I'm a big fan of this deck. This is, I think, probably the best version of the Persist Archon of Cruelty that I've played so far. I've tried a bunch of different shells. It's either this or the Asmo version. I think my next project is to try and fit Pyromancer and Asmo and Saga all into the same deck. The only problem with that is the mana base, so I got to work on that a little bit. But if you're a fan of putting Archon of Cruelty into play as early as the second turn of the game, this is definitely a good deck for you. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I really hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.